This is the show dedicated to raising up the next generation of men of faith and character. My name is Mark Stanifer. Welcome to the Next Man Up,
part of the NRT Podcast Network.
Well, hey guys, welcome in once again to the Next Man Up podcast. So good to have you along with us. And it's my honor once again to be in the saddle as your host today. And in case you needed another reminder, you are part of the community that's changing the world one boy becoming a healthy and godly man at a time. So thank you for being part of this community and being here once again for another episode. Today I'm going to take a break from the Essentials of Manhood series, and there's a couple more episodes that I want to do there before that gets wrapped up. But I want to go a little bit deeper on something that was triggered as a result of the leadership episode. And if you saw the title or if you peeked ahead at the show notes, you know what we're talking about today is this idea of rejecting passivity. For those of you that are familiar with Robert Lewis and his Raising a Modern Day Knight work and some of the other work that he's done around men and discipleship, you'll know that as part of his definition of what it means to be a man, in there is this very specific line that says, a man rejects passivity. And so we're going to go a little bit deeper into this idea of rejecting passivity. And I want to ask really four questions that we'll tease out here. The first is this: where does passivity come from? The second is, what does passivity look like? Third will be, what are the consequences of passivity? And then finally, how do you overcome it? So strap in, guys. That's where we're going today. Okay, so to wrap our heads around this first question, where does passivity come from? I think we got to go all the way back to the beginning. One of the descriptions I like about humanity, about men and women, is this idea of being sons of Adam and daughters of Eve. And it certainly carries a number of different connotations. But in the very beginning, our first example of walking intimately with Father in Adam's story, we find very quickly this idea, this impact of passivity. Let me read from you a quote from Morgan Snyder's book, Becoming a King. He says this: through both the grasping of Eve and the passivity of Adam, separation from the living God entered the world. Now, I think that origin story, our understanding of what happened in Adam's story, is indicative of where our passivity comes from today. And that is, we either forget or we ignore who we are, who Father says we are, and we choose another way to define our identity. Now, I know we're talking about passivity here, but if we don't know who we are in Father, then inevitably we become insecure, and fear begins to grab the reins of our lives and hold us back and keep us passive. Ultimately, I think the origin of this passivity is really losing or abandoning who we are as sons of Father, who we are as men, who we are as God has called us to be, and for the plan He has for our lives. And it all can be traced back to that garden story when Adam pursued a different way. The next question is this: what does passivity look like? Now, you probably have an idea from your own experience and can recognize it in your own life, but let me give you some ideas that come to my mind. First, this, let me, a bit of a disclaimer here. Passivity is agnostic to personality. What I mean by that is whether you are naturally mild-mannered Clark Kent or you are naturally Superman coming out of the telephone booth, it doesn't matter. Passivity is still something to be rejected. Now there are some personality and temperament styles that may be more inclined to action and initiative, but passivity is still something that each of us, must reject, regardless of our personality or our wiring. Another thought is this. I think passivity is an acquired mindset. Now, what I mean by that is this. Now, I recognize that the origin goes all the way back into Adam's story and the challenges that we're still dealing with millennia later. But when we tend to prefer the easy, or to stay small, or to settle for something that's more secure or comfortable or safe, that's a mindset that we've put on that says this is better for us. Or how about this mindset where you're focused on winning or conquering in the temporal or lesser things while avoiding the important things. Things like growing in yourself, investing in key relationships that matter, living in the identity, remembering who you are as a beloved son. I think passivity can be this mindset that we acquire, that we learn, that then has to be challenged and removed in order for us to reject passivity and go in a different direction. I think passivity may also present differently in different areas. For example, you may be killing it at work, where you're engaged and you're active in the mission of the organization and helping to develop people and grow them around you, and then completely be checked out or be a doormat at home. Or think of it this way. Passivity shows up in your life where you're hiding or avoiding, and the motive behind that is preferring safety or comfort or avoiding conflict. Again, I think it can be present in one area of your life, although not present in another area of your life. Let me give you some other specific examples. Maybe these will ring true for you, or maybe some of these examples you're already thinking about. Passivity looks like deferring a decision until it's made for you, essentially by default. It's hiding from moments of conflict or tension at home. It's embracing a leader role at work, but checking it at the door as you walk in at the end of the day. It could be trying to avoid all risk in your life, or not standing up for others who are being mistreated. It could be conceding the truth in favor of comfort or to avoid being excluded. In fact, let me go a little bit deeper there, borrowing from the words of Rod Dreher in his book, Live Not by Lies. He references an old Russian proverb that says this: one word of truth outweighs the whole world. And then he goes on to say this: it is up to us today to take up this challenge, to live not by lies, and to speak the truth that defeats evil. How do we do this in a society built on lies? By accepting a life outside the mainstream, courageously defending the truth, and being willing to endure the consequences. Guys, that is rejecting passivity. And Dreher is writing in a specific political, economical type of context. But what he's getting at is courageously defending the truth, initiating, actively standing against lies, and being willing to endure the consequences as a result. That's the opposite of accepting passivity. Now, this list is not a comprehensive one, of course, but you get the idea. Some things to be looking for in your own life, in the lives of the men around you, and even in the life of your boy, that are indicators that maybe there's opportunity to reject passivity. So what are the consequences of passivity, of not rejecting passivity? Or maybe another way to say it is, what's at stake? Well, choosing to be passive is choosing to reject courage, to reject action, to reject taking initiative, to reject even leadership. Jody Burkeen, a guest we had on a number of episodes ago, says this: most guys have their testicles in their wives' purses. You want to know what's at stake? Well, Jody calls it out pretty straight up with a statement like that. What's at stake is a gradual ceding of ground, a giving way of ground, really surrendering your power, your agency, your ability to others, or even, as Adam did, to the enemy. What's at stake is your growth as a healthy and godly man, because it gets stunted as a result of passivity, or it never happens. In his book, Jesus Has Left the Building, Paul Vieira writes this: "The secret to passing from immature to mature is use. We have to practice and use the truth we are learning. Truth must be learned in the context of action. Learning in passivity will not lead to maturity." What else is at stake? Your son will be missing the model that he needs to grow into a healthy and godly man himself. Now, he may figure it out by watching others, but he will be robbed of the example at home, the primary man that he will look to show him what it means to reject passivity. Your family is also robbed of the leader that it needs and deserves. Accepting passivity will result in a marriage that stagnates or deteriorates or just completely crumbles altogether. And then choosing passivity really rejects God's design and his desire for who you are and for who he wants you to become. So what do you do? How do you overcome passivity? Well, first of all, let me say this is not a one and done thing. This is a journey. It's a lifelong, disciplined approach to how you are living and who you are becoming. But here are some things that you can begin to think about and to do to shift from accepting to rejecting passivity. The first is this: do what Adam was unable to do back in the garden. Remember who you are. Yes, you are a son of Adam, but you are a son of Father. When you can remember who you are in your identity and be grounded in that, then that sets a foundation from which you can choose to live courageously and lead courageously, and as a result, reject passivity. Here's another idea. Agree with the words of John Eldredge that he wrote in his book, Fathered by God. Passivity has no place in the lexicon of true masculinity. None. And to overcome passivity, God has set his warrior heart in every man. Essentially, what John is saying is that we need to rediscover the warrior within. And not the physical battle warrior or the verbal battle warrior. It's more than that. We've talked about that on this show many, many times. It's bigger than that. But if you want an example to point to, refamiliarize yourself with the life of Jesus and the warrior that he was and the way he went about it as he lived his life and interacted with the people around him. Rediscover the Jesus way of the warrior. A third idea is this: decide and resolve. Just make a decision and resolve to live out that decision. Lay the groundwork in preparation for the harder decisions, the circumstances, the discomfort that may come. As I was thinking about this point, I was taken back to the story of the pilot Sully Sullenberger in his book Highest Duty. He's the pilot that landed his plane emergency on the Hudson River, and all of his passengers and crew left and made it out safely. He writes this: "I believe many people in those extraordinary situations actually have made decisions years before. Somewhere along the line, they came to define the sort of person they wanted to be, and then they constructed their lives accordingly. They had told themselves they would not be passive observers. If called upon to respond in some courageous and selfless way, they would do so." Guys, you may not be called upon to land a plane in the Hudson, but you are called upon to shepherd your family, to nurture your relationship with your spouse, to love and lead your kids. to grow into the man that God has created you to be. Again, it may not be as dramatic and as emergency a situation as Sully landing his plane on the Hudson, but it is no less a calling, and it requires that resolve and that decision and then the preparation for doing what is yours to do. And here's a final thought. What else can you do? How do you overcome it? Upskill. It's perhaps for you maybe a skill set where you feel like you're not equipped with the right tools for communication or emotional intelligence or really understanding your identity. You are capable, you have agency, and you can find those resources that will help you upskill to where you need to be. It just takes initiative. It takes action. It takes rejecting the passive approach and moving toward an active approach to gather those skills and to develop yourself in a way that you can be who you are called to be and who you want to be. Well, guys, let me work to bring this to a close by starting with Eldredge again. He says this: to be a man, we must learn to live with courage, take action, and go into battle. Rejecting passivity is the harder way. It takes courage and intention. It comes with risk of being wounded or misunderstood or making a mistake. It certainly requires energy and making decisions and taking a stand. It's rediscovering that warrior within. And as Eldredge says, to live with courage, take action, and go into battle. You cannot lead those God has entrusted to you by choosing the way of passivity. So here's the invitation to step into the adventure God has for you, choosing to actively become a healthy and godly man, and as a father, inviting your son to do the same. Well, guys, I hope this challenged your thinking around passivity versus initiative and action, what it means to lead, what it means to step into courage, what it means to remember who you are, even as we learn from the story of Adam. That's my hope. That's my wish in recording these words today. I would also invite you to share your thoughts and reactions with me. If I can be of any assistance to you, or help you to shift from a life of passivity toward a life of courage and intentional leadership, you can hit me up at feedback@thenextmanup.com. I'd love to hear from you and dialogue with you and help you further along in your journey. Okay, guys, we will call it here. Thanks again for being a part of the community and being back for another episode. And I will be back with yet another conversation, same bat time, same bat channel next week. Until then, adios. Hey, listeners, thanks for journeying with us on this Next Man Up podcast. You know, we would love to hear from you. Maybe you have a question or an idea, perhaps a topic for us to consider. If that's you and you want to reach out to us, you can get us at feedback@thenextmanup.com. That's feedback@thenextmanup.com. Again, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you later.